Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I will detail the story of Demetrius "Hook" Mitchell. Hook was born on September 10th, 1968. Hook grew up in the lower bottoms in West Oakland, in a tough area known as Campbell Village, which is one of the most crime-ridden areas in Oakland. Being a housing project surrounded by crime, that's all Hook would see coming up. Hook had a hard upbringing. His mom and dad was addicted to drugs, and he watched his mom use several different types of drugs as a kid. He was often being exposed to all the drugs you could imagine in his own home. He would eventually move with his grandmother, who was raising 10 of her grandkids. Hook's father and mother were in jail most of his life, and with his grandmother working all the time, he had no guidance. He was committing crimes and smoking by the age of 10, which later led to cocaine use by the age of 12.
Then my father was a drug user. You know, you may not believe this or not, at the age of 6 years old, I was still sucking a bottle, man, So, man, I started smoking weed at 10. And that's kind of like, every morning I'm smoking weed. And in the 7th and 8th grade, I was in 7th grade, I think I was introduced to powder cocaine.
Once you come out your door, it's either basketball or that, you know what I mean? And that's how it was for him. He didn't have a whole lot of other alternatives. That him and his uncle up there, and he just started firing up some weed, right? I'm like, man, ain't your grandmother downstairs? He's like, oh man, I'm trapped, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, no, I'm cool, you know what I'm saying? Then he brought out some other stuff they was about to snort. He's like, you want some of this? I was like, what's that? He's like, some hoochie goochie. I was like, no, I'm cool, you know what I mean? That was his uncle, whatever, you know what I mean?
A lot of his cousins were not necessarily, most desirable people to be around.
They had love for Hook, but just in a strange kind of way. I mean, if you looking at it like that, you know what I mean? Most of them people that probably gave him some of the drugs, it's like they was family members, they died for him too.
I was ripping and running the street very rampant back then. I didn't have to come home. I didn't spend, I'd go home to change clothes, and if that.
With falling victim to his environment, Hook eventually started being in the streets. He would be house to house, never feeling like he had a home. Only thing Hook had was him being good at basketball. Hook had a natural talent, and he was better than every kid around him. He grew up playing basketball with the likes of future NBA players from Oakland, like Gary Payton, Jason Kidd, Antonio Davis, Brian Shaw, and several others. With being house to house, Hook spent a lot of time at Gary Payton's home, who had something Hook never had, which was structure and a family steering him in the right direction.
He would want to always stay over my house because where he lived, he wasn't really comfortable because he grew up in the projects.
Sometimes Antonio Davis' mom used to let me stay over. Some nights I used to have to sleep under Gary Payton's bed. If I wasn't at Gary's house, I would have been, living, been outside all night, maybe been at a crack house, somebody, smoking, a dope fiend house or something, somebody, just kicking back, at one of the, as they say, spots.
Hook's family was leading him to the streets, and they also introduced him to drugs, but he still managed to be a great basketball player and was one of the best ones in Oakland. Hook played for McClymonds High School along with Antonio Davis in the 80s. He was beating all the future NBA players I said before, and they would even say he was better than them. Even though Hook was excelling in basketball, he could never stay on the straight and narrow. Hook would be doing drugs and drinking even before his basketball games. Hook's academic struggles initially prevented him from attending college. Even though he was the best in the city, he had to watch all his future NBA friends who he was better than go to college.
He was like the playground legend because he was 5'9", had incredible hops. He could do anything he wanted to. I mean, he was better than me. He was better than Jason. He was better than Antonio. He was better than everybody.
Growing up with Hook, he was a playground legend. You talk about anybody who knew that he was going to be at the playground, he drew, everybody wanted to watch him play. Everybody rushed to see what he was going to do. Was he going to jump over a car? Was he going to jump over a motorcycle? Was he going to do a 360 over somebody?
Emil in the air, A-Bears, but in the air, finishes second behind Hook Demetrius Mitchell. Here comes the Hook, magnificent 360 over the guy sitting in a chair, and look at him celebrate. Imagine the celebration if Hook didn't win.
But the title goes to Demetrius Hook Mitchell of Oakland. His 360 slam was a crowd pleaser.
I've been doing it for a while,
Hook never graduated high school. Drugs and basketball were the only things Hook wanted to do, but the two wouldn't go together. Hook played for 1 season at Merritt College, then 2 seasons at Contra Costa College. The highest level he reached was playing for what was known as Cal State Hayward. Hook began to get in trouble for various crimes as the years went along and would spend time in jail after juggling the streets and basketball. By this point, Hook had no hope for the NBA, but he kept up his hoop dreams by playing in several minor leagues, competing in tournaments, and also dunk competitions. This led to him being invited by NBA friends like Brian Shaw to compete in the dunk competition, but he would show up high and made a fool of himself in the competition.
Bud Webb and Manute Bol and Wayman Tisdale, they put on a game in Sacramento with the Kings in the summertime, one of the charity games. Gary and myself talked, we were like, you gotta let our boy in this dunk contest. So all the NBA guys are sitting on the sideline at halftime. The announcer for the Kings gets on the mic. It's about 10,000 people in Arco Arena. Says, names off all the titles of all the slam dunk contests that Hook won. All right, so he's going on and on. He won the ESPN, the Budweiser, this, that, and the other dunk contest. Now coming on the court from Oakland, 5'9", Demetrius Hook Mitchell. The place gets quiet. Hook comes walking out, and when he walks out on the court, I'm like, oh, shit. Because I can see it in his eyes. His eyes are red. I can tell he's fucked up. He's high. He has on these raggedy shorts, raggedy T-shirt. So everybody looks at him, you know, Kenny Smith and all these guys on the sideline, and they're like, this is the guy that you guys are talking about? And I'm like, hey, just watch. He attempted about 14 dunks. He only made 1. And he missed. I mean, he didn't like just miss, he missed bad. Finally to the point where the announcer just goes, well, it's a bad day for the Hookster. And Hook just grabbed the ball, pulled his cap down, and walked out.
Brian Shaw even gave him another chance by inviting Hook to help him with a basketball camp, but Hook was caught stealing, and Brian cut ties with Hook.
And I wanted him to come to my camp, and what I wanted him to do was demonstrate some of the dunks and things that I had seen him do, you know, before. So 12 o'clock, we get to the lunch break, and I have like, you know, it's probably like 6 or 8 basketballs that are missing. And a box of the camp T-shirts are missing. I kept seeing Hook go outside, a little side door, and so I went to go investigate and see what happened, and I walked outside, and when I walked out and he saw me, he just kind of stopped in his tracks. And I said, Hook, what you doing, man? He's like, oh, nothing, I'm just sitting outside, just taking in some fresh air. And I walked over on the other side of the dumpster, and there were all these basketballs and all these T-shirts. You know, and he broke down, and he said, hey, I just wanted to, you know, I wanted to bring some shirts to my grandmother, and, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I love you like a brother. And so, tough love that I learned from, you know, from my father. I was like, hey, you know what? I don't want you to work at the camp anymore. I said, take those T-shirts. I'm taking back the balls. I paid him his money for the day. I said, take the money and don't come back.
Hook's dive into drugs and crime destroyed all his connections and any chance he had of becoming a professional athlete. In 1999, he was convicted of an armed robbery of a Blockbuster video store. He was sent to prison for 5 years. During Hook's 5 years in prison, he converted to Islam and changed his name. He also competed in prison basketball games. The documentary Hook, The Legend of Demetrius Hook Mitchell, was released in 2003. A lot of the footage from the documentary Hook was shot during visits with him in prison. Hook was released from prison on April 4th, 2004. After prison, Hook went to training camp with the Golden State Warriors, but he was eventually cut. Hook later did a photo shoot for Dime magazine, then signed a contract with Reebok, but Hook couldn't stay out of trouble. He was later incarcerated again, then released in May of 2011. Over the years, Hook stayed relevant in the basketball community. He joined the YPA, a known mixtape squad, and also became the coach and founder of the Oakland Mountain Dew Extreme, a well-known AAU basketball team in California. He was also the primary subject, along with another Oakland basketball player named Leon Poe, of a 2012 documentary called The Town Game, 2 Lives, 2 Paths. Hook was later listed in Complex magazine as number 11 on the list of the 20 greatest basketball players to never play in the NBA. Of recently, Hook has done several interviews detailing his life. He also can be seen around several sporting events and also being a face in Oakland.
Of this town shit. That's the juice. That's the juice. That's the beast. The beast.
Hey, that's what I passed the torch to.
This some real, this classic. This a cold movie right here.
That's awesome.
Woo! Era.
This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.